The year was 1959, and on a frosty morning in early February, a group of 9 hikers were in the middle of what promised to be the journey of a lifetime. They were making their way across the icy expanse of the Ural Mountains in Russia, hoping to complete the difficult route and achieve Level 3 hiking certification. So far, the trip had its challenges, but it also had many moments of fun and laughter. After this night, however, there would be no more good times. In the freezing darkness of the night of February 1st, 1959, something would occur that would make every member of the group, all experienced hikers, skiers and campers, flee their tent into the unforgiving snow, some of them without even shoes on. Something would make them slash open the tent's fabric from the inside. Something would cause them all to perish in truly awful ways. Something happened to them, and to this day, we still don't know exactly what it was. What happened that night to those 9 hikers on the mountain of Kholat Syakhl would come to be known as the Dyatlov Pass Incident, and it is one of the most chilling unsolved mysteries of all time. Today, we will be going into what exactly occurred to the hikers involved in the Dyatlov Pass Incident. Then we'll be running through some of the more popular theories about what happened to them. As with any unexplained mystery, these theories range from the scientific to the paranormal, but the most frightening one is actually neither of those. To start with, let's introduce the hikers. The leader of the group and also the unfortunate namesake of the incident was Igor Dyatlov. Dyatlov was a 23-year-old student from the Ural Polytechnic Institute. Most of the hikers that went with him were also students and were around the same age. The group originally consisted of 8 men and 2 women, but one of the hikers, Yuri Yudin, fell ill early into the trip and was forced to turn back. The only hiker on the expedition that wasn't in their 20s was Semyon Zolotaryov. He was 38 and was supposed to go on an expedition with another group. By all accounts, the hikers had a good time together, at least in the beginning. They all seemed to get along, and while there were arguments, they resolved themselves pretty quickly. They also made good pace along their route, and things seemed to be going well for them. However, their good fortune wouldn't last. By the 1st of February, the group had become lost, seemingly because of the poor conditions on the mountains. They ended up camping high up on the mountain known as Kholat Syakhl, which translates as Dead Mountain in the language of the native Mansi people. This proved to be a bad idea. Instead of being in the relative shelter of the forest, the group was now in the open and therefore much more exposed to the elements. Despite this, they wearily pitched a tent and settled down for the night. And that's when something happened, and the group of hikers was never seen alive again. When Dyatlov and his group failed to complete their journey by the 20th of February, a search party was organized. What that search party found horrified and baffled them. They found the hikers' camp in a state of disarray. For one thing, their tent was almost completely destroyed and under a great deal of snow. The material of it had been slashed from the inside, and most of the group's belongings were still inside it, including their warm clothes and shoes. It was immediately apparent that something really bad happened. The hikers were nowhere to be seen, but there were footprints, 9 sets of them, leading towards the forest. The search party followed the footprints, and that's when they began to find the bodies of the hikers. The first 2 bodies found were dressed in only underwear and without shoes. They were near a tree with broken branches, which meant they had likely been trying to climb the tree, perhaps to find their way back to the tent. The next 3 bodies seemed as if they had been on their way back to the tent based on the positions they were found in. There were also the burnt-out remains of a small fire. After an extensive search that lasted over 2 months, the final 4 bodies were found. They were in the water in a ravine and better dressed than the others. It appeared as if they had taken the clothes of the other hikers after they died. If it wasn't bad enough that 9 experienced hikers died on what was supposed to be a fantastic test of their skills, the way they died seemed to suggest that something truly awful happened to them. Some of the bodies had major chest damage. One had damage to the skull. They had no external wounds. However, the bruises suggest their bodies may have been exposed to high pressure. The force required to inflict these injuries on the bodies would have been like the force of a car crash. Allegedly, the bodies in the water were also slightly radioactive, and when the bodies were buried, relatives rumored to have said the bodies had orange skin and grey hair. Immediately following the discovery of the bodies, the theories as to what happened to them began to pour in. The first official explanation from the Soviet government was that the hikers all died of hypothermia after running out into the snow due to a compelling natural force. The compelling natural force in question may have been an avalanche or a hurricane. Initially, this theory was dismissed by many for a variety of reasons, such as the fact that there was no physical evidence that showed an avalanche or hurricane at the camp. Many expeditions had gone into the same area since the Dyatlov Pass incident and never encountered an avalanche. And the footprints leading away from the camp seemed to show that the hikers were walking, not running. However, this theory has become more likely in recent years as more tests have been done. Most recently, in 2021, a new model developed by a small group of engineers and physicists shows that a type of avalanche known as a slab avalanche could have caused enough damage to injure the hikers and destroy their tent. More research conducted in 2015 at the request of the hikers' families showed the first investigation conducted in 1959 wasn't complete enough. The initial investigation took place on a day with relatively calm weather, and so the snow from any avalanche was already gone. Reports proved at the time of the Dyatlov Pass incident the weather was very bad, but the investigators didn't properly factor this into their investigation. The 2015 re-investigation painted a pretty accurate but grim picture of what could have happened to the hikers that night. First of all, they were camping in a very bad spot, the side of a mountain, exposed to all sorts of bad weather. In the night, there was a slab avalanche, which caused the hikers to leave their tent in a hurry, unprepared and underdressed, and go off into the forest. The group split up, with those not properly dressed waiting around a fire for those with better clothing to return. Unfortunately, the sub-zero temperatures proved too much, and everyone died. The avalanche explanation is also supported by the concept of paradoxical undressing, which could explain why many of the hikers were found unclothed. Paradoxical undressing is something that can happen during the later stages of hypothermia, when a person is about to die. During the earlier stages, the body constricts blood vessels to keep you warm. However, when your body is failing, the blood vessels expand again, and you can suddenly feel very hot and want to take your clothes off. Some people do not believe the avalanche explanation, but instead believe that other natural forces were responsible for the deaths of the hikers. One theory claims that the hikers had to flee the tent due to a sudden, severe katabatic wind. They then got lost and tried to make a shelter in the snow that collapsed, leaving them with the injuries their bodies were discovered with. Another theory involving a natural phenomenon is that of a Kármán vortex street, which was caused by the winds on the exposed side of the mountain. This then created infrasound, which is sound that is too low for the human ear to hear, but which can cause feelings of dread and discomfort. This could have caused the hikers to panic and leave the tent, thinking something bad was going to happen to them. Ironically, doing this then did cause something bad to happen to them. They then got lost in the forest and died of hypothermia, and those found with physical injuries got them after falling off a ravine. These two other force of nature explanations are not as widely accepted as the avalanche theory, which is still the current official explanation for the incident. So, is the mystery of the Dyatlov Pass incident solved? Perhaps, but like any good mystery, there are some people unwilling to buy that explanation. Due to the strange circumstances of the incident, the incomplete investigation from 1959 and the secretive nature of the Soviet government in keeping information about the incident away from the public, many conspiracy theories have formed about the Dyatlov Pass incident. Some of those theories are, of course, supernatural. Some believe that a Yeti attacked the hikers, causing them to flee their tent in the night and try to hide from it in the forest. Others believe their injuries were caused by extraterrestrials, and that is why some of their bodies showed no signs of external injury but had chest and skull damage, and why some of the bodies had slight radioactivity, along with orange skin and grey hair. In terms of supernatural explanations, the UFO theory is at least a little bit more likely than a Yeti attack. Lev Ivanov, who ran the 1959 investigation, wrote in 1990 that he and his team had seen strange flying spheres in the sky around the area of the incident, and that when they reported this, high-ranking Soviet officials immediately told them to say no more about it. The spheres in the sky were also reported by another group of hikers who were in the area at the time. Ivanov is quoted as saying, "I suspected at the time, and I'm almost sure now, that these bright flying spheres had a direct connection to the group's death." Of course, supernatural explanations are common when it comes to unexplained mysteries. But the likelihood of aliens or Yetis having anything to do with the deaths of the 9 hikers is pretty low. So, if the explanation for the Dyatlov Pass incident is not a supernatural one or a force of nature, could it be, as many still believe to this day, that the Soviet government had something to do with the deaths of the hikers? This theory is arguably the most terrifying, as the fact that someone would willingly murder 9 innocent people is absolutely awful. The military theory goes one of several ways. Some believe that the group of hikers was killed when a Soviet parachute mine exploded in the air above them. This could have injured them, or at the very least frightened them enough to go out into the cold and freeze to death. The bodies were then destroyed by animals, which would explain why some were found with features such as their eyes missing. Others believe the group may have stumbled across an area they weren't supposed to be in, or seen something that was supposed to remain a secret. This theory is supported by Yuri Yudin, the only survivor of the hiking party. He believes the hiking group, quote, saw something they shouldn't have seen, and were killed by the military for it, after faking a scene to cover up what happened. In an article for the St. Petersburg Times, Yudin said, "If I had a chance to ask God just one question, it would be, what really happened to my friends that night?" Yuri Kuntsevich, who is the head of the Dyatlov Memorial Fund and attended the funerals of the hikers as a child, also believes that there is a cover-up involving their deaths. According to him, the group was apparently on the trip to photograph secret missile tests for the US, and their deaths were deliberate in order to hide their mission. Whatever the truth behind the Dyatlov Pass incident is, what is absolutely certain is that the deaths of Igor Dyatlov and the other hikers was an absolute tragedy. What are your thoughts about the Dyatlov Pass incident? Are there any theories that we missed? Let us know in the comments below. If you liked this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more just like it. We'll see you in the next video.